Hello, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast episode. Drumroll, please. 400. 400. Recorded live Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. You'll all remember where you were when you first heard podcast 400. So let's dig into that. We haven't podcasted in a while because we've both been traveling and stuff. So this probably should have been like 410 or something like that. But we've just not been able to get together. Speaking of podcasting, part of what has made this podcast work for the last few months, and we've got some news on that here in a couple of minutes, is we've picked up a few sponsors, and that has helped. And one of them is my good friends at syskit.com. You know them as the brilliant folks behind SP.kit, the best documentation toolkit ever in the history of documentation, period. But specifically for us SharePoint and Office 365 folks, they do a lot of things. But they've got a new tool out there called Syskit Insights. So check that out, and try that out. It gives you some insights on what's going on with your farm. It's just good stuff. But go to syskit.com. Also, if you go to toddclint.com, and if you click any of the banners, that'll take you there too. So thanks to the folks at Syskit for all of that.
So I can see that, in the pre-show, because we do a pre-show, Todd was having a hard time with the English language. And guess what? It looks like that's going to bleed over the show. He claims he has a cold or something. I don't know. He whines about that. So just warning you guys ahead of time, we're going to hear some complaints, whining, weird words. It happens.
Yeah. So, and we're going to get into this later on, but last week was SP TechCon, and Shane and I did a session on Sunday, and that's when this really started. So Sunday I was sneezing, I was coughing, I wasn't feeling very well. And that persisted through the whole conference. And then I came home, and it got even better. And it kind of settled in my chest, which is where my lungs are, where the air comes in and out of my body. And Labor Day weekend was last weekend, and we had to go up to my wife's parents' house to pick up some stuff. One of her nephews raised a pig, and we bought anyway, I had to go up there for the weekend. And her brother and sister-in-law were going to run a race. So I'm like, hey, I like to run. And it was half marathon, so 13.1 miles. I had done nothing to prepare for this race other than just being in the shape that I'm in. Hadn't been feeling well for a week. Hadn't really been eating much because I was kind of sick to my stomach. But I'm like, yeah, I could probably just get up and run 13 miles. I almost died that day. It was horrible. And I couldn't get any air, and it was a bad deal. So I've been complaining about all that for days.
Yes, folks. And see, what happened, right? This is that whole you can mentally talk yourself into things. So the session on Sunday, it was slated for Shane to talk 80%, Todd to talk for 20%. So Todd's like, well, how can I get in more Todd time? So he convinced himself to develop this cold so he could cough and sneeze, so he could interject, with those type of things throughout the day. And now he's still sick a week later. So this just proves you this mind over matter thing, it's not working for you.
I don't know. I was, it was pretty miserable. My wife is trying to get me to go to the doctor, and it's that whole thing. Nah, and I'm pretty sure another day and it'll be out of my system. I've been saying this since Thursday when I got home.
Well, I'm not coming to visit you in the hospital when you get pneumonia, just so we're on the same page.
I think it'll probably be one of those things where it'll be, whether you're a pallbearer or not, I think is really a decision that you're going to have to make.
I would do that for Jill. You can tell her that if I got the call, I would come to Iowa for that particular reason.
Yep. So I got back from that race to her house, and her parents' house, and I was in bad shape. So I drank some stuff, tried to eat, really couldn't, and then went back and took a nap. And she let me sleep for an hour and a half, and I got up and all that. And she's like, I was going to come back and check on you, and if you were not awake, I was going to probably take you to the doctor or something. She's like, I don't want you to die in your sleep. And I'm like, honestly, if that option had been given to me this morning, if you just go back and take a nap, you don't have to worry about waking up. There'd have been a coin flip or something involved. I don't know how I would have decided that. It was rough. So yeah, that pallbearer thing, don't make an offer you're not prepared to follow through on.
I'm here for it. Well, the good news is I'm guessing when we first started this show 400 episodes ago, people probably thought the show needed a pallbearer, show 2, show 3, somewhere in there.
Uh-huh.
But look at us. We've made 400 episodes. We haven't killed each other.
Nope.
We haven't caught anything on fire.
No. No.
Those are probably the only accomplishments, but
Yep.
I mean, 400 episodes in, that's it's a big deal.
Yeah,
Kudos.
9.5 years. So the first one of these was March of 2009 was when I did the first one of these. Yeah, it's been crazy. And we've had some milestones over the years. I mean, 5 years and 100, 200, 300. And I mean, there's still a couple of folks. Lori for sure has been here the whole time that I was doing it. You know, the first few episodes were in my basement next to my cat box. We've moved up since then. Now the cat box is, you know, a good 30, 40 feet away. So
And if only you had known about, Jones and Live from the Litter Box back then, you could have, had a guitar and auto-tuned your voice. It would have been a much better show.
yeah, so back then SharePoint 2007 was all the rage. And now we've had 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, the preview was out. So that was 4 versions of SharePoint ago. You and I hadn't worked together officially yet. No, I was still working for the company before that.
Yep.
Wow, neither of us had kids. No, I had one kid. Yeah, I had Lily. Yep.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's why you started the show, is you needed to escape from the kid. Jill's like, this hour every week you can watch the kid. And you're like, I have this podcast now. Sure, that's how that happened.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember, what was the thing that made you be like, hey, I think today I'm gonna do a podcast?
I do. So it was a number of things that did it. Number one, so I'd been blogging for a while, and so the idea of getting information out without having to properly prepare it, just be able to talk about it, had a good appeal. But I've been listening to podcasts myself forever, for longer than 9 years. And so there was just a bunch of podcasts where people were just sitting down talking about stuff. And I'm like, man, that seems like a good medium. I love that. And back then it was, I was trying to think the guys at Dig. So, oh man, what's his name? I can't think of his name. So there's 2 guys from Dig that were sitting on a couch, the 2 guys that started Dig, and a bunch of them like, man, this is the thing. I can do that. And so it was the fact that I was consuming all these other podcasts and the fact that I just didn't want to go to all the trouble of writing out a blog post. It was kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and the joke's on you, right? Because it turns out that this, with all the production challenges, this takes way longer than making a blog post.
Oh, yes. So Allie in the chat room, Dignation, somebody Rose was one of them, dark-haired guy. not Pete Rose, not Stephen Rose. And then the blonde guy, Alex, maybe. I forget. The 2 guys that started Dig. But yeah, Dignation was one of them. Of course, all of Leo Laporte's stuff. But I just remember thinking, hey, I can try this. So Kevin Rose. Yes, Kevin Rose. So that was it. And it was funny. I did it in the basement by the cat box, not because of all that, however many 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet I had, that was the spot to do it. The people before us had set an office up in the basement. And they had hung like a sheet, or the basement was unfinished. And so they just hung a sheet around a corner. He had like a thing so he could kind of close his office door essentially so the kids wouldn't bother him. And that has just happened to be where we put the cat box. So that was just happened to be the background that I chose for those, was that blue sheet, the curtain. Yeah, Alex Albrecht, yes. And so that's why I did it there. But then, of course, like 2-3 episodes in, while I'm in the middle of recording, nature calls and
Snoopy showed up, and that was probably Louise back then, right?
This was long before Snoopy and Louise's time. Yeah, this was a couple of cats ago.
Oh,
yep.
But yeah, and if people remember, right, I'm sure no one does, but in the beginning, right, it was all just you in the cat box. And so, and I would just come and fill in when you were going to be out of town for too long. Like, hey, will you host this podcast thing for me?
Yep.
And I'm like, would you just want me to get on there and talk to myself? He's like, yep. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Yep. You were going to be talking to yourself anyway, so you might as well. Yeah, that was one of those things. So I credit Scott Hanselman for that. Of course, this is going to be funny considering the last month, but he does a bunch of podcasts, and he said one of the keys was consistency. And so I tried to do some when I was traveling, but just the bad internet at hotels and being busy, I wasn't able to do it. So then I started bringing you in to fill in the blanks if we weren't going to be traveling together, to kind of keep the consistency going. And that has helped.
I'd have to go back and look and see what was the first one I did by myself. And more importantly, what was the first one we did together? I have almost no idea what the first one was we did together.
Man, I would have to go back and look, and I think I've got them all. I mean, I think I could go back and look at them. And that's one of the things. So I don't think people that don't podcast appreciate how complicated it is to podcast, and specifically how complicated it is to do video with two people. Man, we spent like an hour fighting it today, and I think our solution is going to go away at some point. And I don't know that we've got a plan B yet.
No, yeah, when Skype, right? And so, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Skype for pleasure has been really in this cycle of upgrade me. And so finally, my Skype for pleasure said, all right, you can no longer have version 11. I have desktop version 12, and then I have the terrible modern thing that I've just never used.
Yeah.
But Skype version 12 does not work with XSplit, which is our software that kind of combines all this stuff and pushes us to YouTube Live. So thankfully, Todd's computer has still fought off the virus that is Skype 12. It's still 11.99999. And so as long as Todd has Skype 11 desktop, we'll be okay. But as soon as Todd finally gets the update for us, and they email you, they put pop-ups, they launch the upgrade process. I mean, They really want us on 12. We just on one Wednesday we're going to walk in here and we'll both have 12, and I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, and it has so Shane and I and Lori also, because we chat with Lori on Skype all the time too. All three of us have been fighting that upgrade for months, and I think it got Lori first. It just finally quit asking her and just did it, and then it got Shane here a couple of months ago. And again, through no fault of their own, it's not like they finally relented and said okay. It was just so I just know at some point it's going to happen to me. And on the machine that we do this on, I switched profiles. I used to log in as a local account with just my Hotmail account, and now I logged in as a domain account so I could do some management stuff. And I started setting stuff up, and I'm like, oh man, if I can't get to that version of Skype, and that was the thing that Shane and I were fighting with this morning, but I think I got it. But yeah, at some point, it's just going to upgrade me without me knowing, and we're going to be stuck.
Yeah, and that's so I can tell you that last week my Surface did it. My Surface I rebooted, it came on, and it just started going. I'm like, what? I do not consent. No means no.
Bad touch.
It just powered through it after that reboot. So they just have this master list, and once your name makes it to the top of that list, you're getting Skype 12 desktop right now.
Yeah, and I've got 3 machines that have Skype on it, and 2 of them have upgraded against my will. So I've got 2 laptops and this desktop, and 2 of the 3 have, But so we'll figure it out. We always have. We used to dedicate a portion of the show talking about all the stuff we screwed up with before, so we've powered through before. But yeah, so I mean, originally it was all about SharePoint. Now it's Office 365 and PowerShell and Power Apps and whatever random thoughts sneak into Shane or I's head. It's been good stuff. So we plan on continuing on. This is it's a good break. A good release. I've been thinking a bunch of the podcasts that I listen to do Patreon stuff, so I've been thinking about having some Patreon things. I got some ideas about that. Bringing some sponsors in, so that's all good.
Yeah, well, and speaking of, you talked about all the technical difficulties we used to have, and we've kind of moved that section out, right? We got rid of the production notes. We figured 400 shows in, you're used to the fact that we break stuff. It happens.
Just understood.
But so to fill that new void, we added another sponsor who they said, guys, you're launching show number 400. That was the mark. They're like, we're not sponsoring 300 show levels.
If it starts at 3, we're not interested. Nope.
So, and that's our friends at App River. So App River is now said, hey guys, we want to hang out with you. We said, that's good. We like friends. But if you're not familiar with App River, one of the things that they do, or the main thing they do, is they are a reseller of Office 365. Right, so if you know anything about that whole model today, you can buy Office 365 straight from Microsoft, or you can buy it from a direct provider, which is someone who resells it or who sells it on their behalf, and so then that person becomes your support.
Yep.
And then there's also this whole indirect thing, and so that's where people who want to sell it, but they don't want to spend all the money and have the relationship directly with Microsoft, they buy it from the direct provider. And then the direct provider handles their support, their add-ons, their enhanced capabilities, and then that partner can just concentrate on selling Office 365.
Yeah, I like it. So App River, they've been around forever. I mean, I think of just all of the SharePoint conferences we've been at and Tech Eds and Ignites and all that. They have been, I think you and I were talking about this at SP TechCon last week. Over the 12 years or so we've been doing this, we've seen a lot of people come and go company-wise, ISVs and all that. And App River, I don't know for sure how long they've been around, but Like I don't ever remember them not being there, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think they started, back. Oh goodness, so they used to do just a spam product,
Okay.
and then people said, "Hey, we want you to host our exchange for us if you're going to provide this product." They're like, "That makes sense." That was like 2006.
Wow.
So
Jeez. Yeah.
I know. I mean, did we even have email 12 years ago?
Well, there were dinosaurs back then. I remember 2006 is when some of the last dinosaurs went out.
Well, and what's even crazier though is so they had actually been in business 6 years at that point. So they started in 2012. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Or not 2012, 2002.
yeah,
Not-
Stacy in the chat room says she's been using them for like 20 years for her her spam filtering. So
yeah. Well, so they did that, and then they became an Office 365 syndication partner. They actually helped Microsoft launch the CSP program that now a bunch of other partners are clamoring to get into. So very long and tenured cycle there.
yeah.
And one of the neat things with that, right, is it brings the level of support that they have. So from a support perspective, they get, I don't know, 712 gazillion tickets a day, I think.
I think that was the exact number. Yeah, we saw their dashboard. Yeah, it was something like that. You never know.
Yeah, Luke was arguing with us the other day about, what numbers came after trillions and things like that. It was really awkward conversation to have with a 6-year-old.
Because he's smarter than you, and that's got to be a tough pill to swallow. Of course, he has been since he's been about 3. But
It's awkward. But so of all those whatever quadrillions of tickets we talked about, they only have to escalate 3% to Microsoft. So that's another nice thing. You develop a relationship with someone who's doing your support. They know your account, things like that. But they're only escalating 3% of the tickets onto Microsoft.
so that's funny because before we went live, Shane and I were trying to get Skype for Business to cooperate, and somebody's like, "Well, it looks like you need to open up a ticket with Microsoft." Anybody who's opened up a ticket with Microsoft, there's a level of commitment there. You don't just call Microsoft and get a solution for these kind of things. So I like the value that somebody like AppRiver provides. If they can get 97% of them before that happens, that's got some value.
No doubt. Yeah. So then and because their whole model is focused around the resale, right? So they don't sell direct to consumer. They are about selling to resellers. So their whole model is there around, they don't compete. They've got a bunch of security audit tools. So really advanced security audit tools that you as the seller, right, that's consuming from them can use to go and evaluate your existing customers or to gain rapport with new customers. So a nice reporting tool there. They've got premium spam and virus stuff. They've got phishing resources. They love email. They're all in on email. So anyway, that's enough about them. Hopefully, unless I really upset them with this promo, we'll be hearing from them for the next few weeks.
All this gushing. Yeah, so if you want to find out more about AppRiver, go to toddclint.com/AppRiver, and that will take you to their page, and you can find out all about the things that the services they provide. But thank you for them for joining up as a sponsor. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and last piece, they got a nice seat bounty running right now as well. So if you move from your existing terrible provider to this awesome provider, they're offering up to $10 per seat for you to move. So you need to pad the bottom line here in September, move over to AppRiver and, get you some free $10 for those mailboxes that you're already hosting today. So
I like free $10. The only thing that I like better than free $10 is free $11. I found that scratches the itch a little better, but that's good stuff.
See, but $11 is so awkward because then you got 2 bills. With 10, it's just one little piece.
I don't have enough fingers.
Yeah, and so then I think speaking of awkward though, I had to be your friend in real life.
Be
for
seen
like
in public with
5
me.
days. Yes, at SP TechCon. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah. So this is a funny story. We're going to talk about all the specific stuff, but this kind of thing happens all the time. So it was like Tuesday. I forget when this happened. Wednesday. Shane and I are walking down the hall and we're arguing about something. We get in the elevator. And we were on separate floors, and so I can't remember what the thing was, but Shane pushed the wrong button on the elevator. Shane screwed up. That's really the important thing to keep from this conversation. And and so I start ragging on him about being a dummy and putting the wrong number in the thing. And there's some poor woman who's already in the elevator, and she is just like, she's backed into the corner. She's just trying to go to her happy place and all that. Her floor is before the erroneous one that Shane picked. And so it stops, the door opens, she steps out. And then as she's like in the middle of the doorway, she stops and she turns to us and she says, you two are exactly the same in person as you are on stage. She walks off. It was some poor woman who knew us from the conference. And
yeah, joke's on her because we kept fighting like cats and dogs after she was gone. Like, Lady, this was not about you. It didn't
No,
care you were there.
this is not
We're
an
important.
action. Neither of us are clever enough or good enough actors to do this.
Well, we have that whole problem, right? Because the world revolves around me. You think the
Mm,
world revolves around
it does.
you,
Yeah, it
and
does.
it does this, and it gets real weird.
I'm an only child. You're one of three. Clearly, the world revolves around me.
See, the only downside of being an only child is you never got to enjoy the superiority of being the oldest perfect child.
I am.
So imagine all the upside of what you got from being the perfect child. I know you got that, but then now you have these younger siblings to lord it over and be like, Mom lets me do whatever I want because I'm the good child.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lorded over everybody. I'm like, they had me, and that was it. Like that was the top. There was no, there was none higher. So it was a good time. So we were pretty busy. We kept pretty busy. We did an all day session on Power Apps on Sunday, and that went really well. I mean, we had a good crowd there. I don't know how many people, but it was packed. A lot of great questions, a lot of great interaction. People were really excited about Power Apps, and I think we gave them some good examples of things they were following along while we read aloud. And
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing, right, was we challenged the people. We said, "Hey, go build an app today. Not next week when you get home. Not when you feel like. Go build an app while you're sitting in the hotel room doing nothing." And a couple people came and stopped us. And like, "Hey, I'm building the app like you told me to," and they had legit questions. And Todd and I sat down and helped these people work it out because we're like,
that was
"You did it. Good for you."
Yep. So we did our session on Sunday, and then Monday we did a session on admin stuff. And one of the people in that admin session came up and asked a question afterwards. And so I'm all in the admin mode, and I'm talking about, farms. And he's like, so I'm building that Power App from yesterday, and the search box isn't responding by last name. And I remember we talked about that yesterday. Yeah, he had done it. I mean, in the time between, 5 o'clock on Sunday and 8:30 Monday morning, he went back to his hotel room and did the stuff that we talked about. That was awesome.
That was really cool. Yeah, and I think overall, the conference. I mean, there's just such a great energy at that conference. It's been our favorite for what? It's been almost 10 years now.
I think 2009. Yeah, I think was the first one. So.
Yeah, or it just because it's smaller, which you're like, but it's not like SharePoint Saturday small. It's this happy, several hundred people size, almost 1,000 sometimes, and you can engage with people. We have conversations. We see a lot of people we know. It's a great show.
Yeah, it's very, very personable, and they can do a lot of things that you can't do at big shows, and it's a lot of fun. And I haven't made a couple of them, and I always miss it because they're just so much fun, and it's good times. So we did that. We did Admin 101. That room was packed. There was a lot of people there. It's one of those things we have to always remind ourselves. There are always new people coming into SharePoint and Office 365, and they always need to know that core stuff. We did that. We did Azure Active Directory. We did PowerShell.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. So we did all that session in 3 sessions.
And so Admin 101, right? There's a great example of a session that on the surface probably isn't even what you think about, right? Because, you're like, oh, Admin 101, so these guys are going to talk about installing SharePoint, patching SharePoint, and we hit on some of that, but probably 50% of that session is about hybrid and helping future you, right? Understanding as an admin that your role is changing. And so that was probably, other than the Power Apps thing, because I love Power Apps, we know. Yeah. But that was my favorite non-Power Apps session because it's so, once again, it's very obvious to us because we've made the transition, but helping the on-prem admins start to see this is where their world is headed. Even if they're like, I'll never go to the cloud. Yeah, whatever. I said that 7 years ago too. And look at what I do now. I own a cloud business.
Yeah, I remember those days. And we told that story in that session. You and I would mock the cloud and laugh. And And Mark in the chat room's talking about not painting yourself into a corner. That's really important. And I think I feel like you and I were both ahead and behind the curve on that. A lot of our peers, I feel like they got into Office 365 before we did. So in that sense, we were a little behind. But I think once we figured it out, we jumped in with both feet and we're a little ahead of some of the people we talked to at conferences. But I'm all in. Office 365 is cool now. I like it.
Yep, I'm with you. It's a pretty neat one. What else we got here?
Well, there's another SP TechCon in Austin in April. And I don't have it in the notes, but Lori will look that up, put that in chat for us. You and I submitted sessions. I hope they get to make, I can't remember what we all submitted, but If you go to sptechcon.com, they've got all the dates for that. If you went to our sessions, we've got all of our slides out there. Reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. But yeah, it was great seeing everybody, and hopefully see them all in April.
Yeah, Austin, and it's supposed to be downtown, right? And Austin, their whole motto is keep it weird, so I can't imagine what that means.
Yes, yeah. So the last location wasn't bad. Shane and I talked about it. If you've been to the SP TechCon in Austin, it was kind of on the edge of Austin, but it had an ice cream shop within walking distance. It had a burger shop within walking distance. It had, what was that, the place we always had breakfast?
Oh, yeah. Egg and I?
Yeah, something like that. So it had all the stuff that Shane and I needed. A lake for us to walk around, hold hands, very romantic. So I had no complaints about the old place, but the new place downtown.
As long as it has ice cream, right? Because that was one of the things that made Boston a success. How many times we have Ben and Jerry's?
Oh, yeah, and that chocolate place. We didn't go there this time, but...
yeah. So we did. We just didn't make it. We didn't stay.
So yeah, the one in Austin is February 10th through the 13th in Austin. Thank you, Lori, for that link.
All right. What else we got here? Well, SharePoint, OneDrive, mass deletion notification.
Yeah. So this is one of these things a while back. Heck, it might have been a year ago now. I did a blog post on how Office 365 administrators can try to keep up with what's changing in Office 365. One of the places is the admin center in Office 365. So what I do on a fairly regular basis, I log into office.com as a tenant admin, and I go to the admin center, and there's all the things, and there's drafts and users, and it's all very busy looking. It's very impressive. But there's the admin center where they put notes. And I noticed here a few days ago a note about a new service about mass delete notification. And essentially what's going to happen is if your OneDrive or a site collection that you are an owner or administrator, I can't remember which they said, of, start seeing a mass amount of files being deleted. So like, somebody going into OneDrive and doing Control-A, delete, something like that, it's going to let you know. It's going to shoot you an email and let you know that that's going on. So I think the idea behind that is, there's a couple things. It could be malware of some variety. Somebody's trying to ransom stuff off, or it could be malicious from a user, or it could just be by accident. Something could be syncing up. But the great thing is it's going to let you know that that's happening. Of course, the recycle bins and all that are on, so you can get stuff restored pretty quickly. And then the email is also going to have a little link in there that says, I don't care about this stuff. Don't pester me about it. I couldn't find a page on office.com or any place to link to, but that is in the admin center. So I thought that was one of those things. Microsoft is just always adding little value adds here and there. I just love seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and they're just like you said, they're the little things. It's all these little value adds that just keep adding up to why in the world would you not be like, hey, I think I'm going to do my stuff over here. I had a call last week with a customer. They're like, we bought Office 365. We're using it. We're like, maybe we should invest a little more over here. We're thinking about moving from Dropbox to OneDrive also. And I'm like, well, you should, right? And I kind of walked them through your story of, how you went from, I hate OneDrive to, I'm in love with OneDrive, googly eyes. And, because it is a great story. And there's, the feature parity, if not some of these new things that are just amazing about OneDrive that just kick Dropbox and the...
Yeah, and I mean, I'm all in on OneDrive, and there's all this kind of thing. So they've also got the ransomware detection stuff that kicks in that's kind of similar to deletion. But I remember, you and I were talking about some hybrid things with attendees last week. We had a couple of them that are like, well, we haven't moved our email out to Office 365 yet. And we're like, what? What? You're maintaining on-prem Exchange servers? What's wrong with you? Have you been hit in the head with a wrench? Why would you do that if you're already paying for Office 365? Ugh.
I mean, it's a curse of knowledge, though, right? It's scary until you're like, wait a minute, this is better. And I talked to another customer 3 weeks ago who was like, well, we've moved Exchange, and so we bought the Exchange Online licenses, and so now we think we want to move SharePoint, so we're going to buy SharePoint Online licenses. I'm like, you realize that the Office 365 entire suite is cheaper than an Exchange and SharePoint separate license, right? So you can either get two things for more money or 373 things for a lot less money. And they're like, oh, we didn't know. And we just take all this for granted because we do know these things, but have to remind people sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I was an Exchange admin for a while. I love my servers. But I talked about changing the profile on this computer, and I've got some new phones. Man, when your email's in Office 365, it is just so simple to set up. And it is just, I mean, you put in your email address, you put in your password, it's all just good. And if it, before you get that done, you can just hit go to office.com and click your email. I just don't understand why anybody does on-prem Exchange anymore. It's insane.
I'm with you. I can't even fathom it because Exchange is just not, it's just not fun, right? It's just not something you're like, oh, I'm so happy that I get to administer this today. You're like, oh, Exchange is mad again. What am I going to do?
Yep. So over the 20-some years I've been taking Microsoft exams, I've taken dozens of exams, and I have only not passed one on the first try, and that was the SharePoint Dev exam a few years ago. Lori and I took it Tech Ed. But even that exam that beat me, that I did not pass the first time, that exam still did not terrify my soul like the Exchange 5.5 admin exam that I took. I studied night and day for that thing for weeks, and I walked out of that thing and I passed it, and I was sweating. I mean, I felt like I'd been in a fight for my life taking that Exchange exam. I have just been terrified of Exchange ever since.
Oh, I remember because my job, so I changed jobs in that window, and I went from a Lotus Notes 4.61 administrator, which we had for mail, and I'm like, oh, this is such nice mail, to Exchange 5.5, and I'm like, well, I mean, Outlook's a much better mail client than Lotus Notes, but like you, this Exchange server, just stay over there. You be good. I won't touch you. You don't touch me.
Yeah.
That was our relationship.
Yep. But yeah, so everybody go to Office 365. Speaking of Office 365 and speaking of all of this, one of our friends that we have known forever, Bob German, he's in the New England area, so we saw him last week. He moved to Microsoft here a few months ago, and he's got like a technical evangelist sort of role. I forget exactly what his role is. He is a partner technology architect for SharePoint and Office 365 development at Microsoft. Great guy, super smart, super friendly. I love Bob. Love Bob to pieces. But yesterday he posted a blog post called Branding SharePoint the New Normal. And this is a great blog post for a couple of reasons. Number one is it's a great walk down memory lane. He's got an out-of-the-box Moss 2007 site up there and talks about how things are laid out. It's all get all nostalgia, get all teary-eyed thinking about that. But then he talks about where branding is today, what the difference between customization and configuration is, what things you should do, what things you should not do. We get asked about this all the time. And so I think this is, at least for now, for the last 24, 36 hours, this is the definitive work on that topic. So they'll be in the show notes. If you go to toddclint.com/podcast400, there'll be a link to that. But this is a very good thing.
Yeah, branding is such a tough topic, right? Because as you've said before, right, we started with how do I make SharePoint not look like SharePoint? And back in 2003, man, we could kind of mess with some files and do some terrible stuff. 2007, we got a little better. 2010, you could responsibly brand, but I mean, it was so easy to spend six figures for something that would go away every single time that you upgraded. Yeah,
every version.
And so now with SharePoint Online, I've not read Bob's article yet, but I look forward to reading it just to see kind of his perspective, because right now we're just steering clients to step away from the branding button, step away. Yep,
and he's got a thing at the bottom. So the last half of the blog post is what your options are. You've got 5 options essentially. Well, really 4, but yeah. So it's a good article. And again, it was funny. I got a chance to catch up with Bob last week, and so we talked for a while, and then I saw this, and it's good. Comes up all the time. We get asked about it.
And I always assume that Bob did something wrong because he has to associate with us. When we walked out, Bob was getting ready for a session, and Todd and I just walk into his room and hop on stage with him and start bothering him. And Bob's just like, as polite as can be. Clearly he's trying to prep a demo or something. And we're like, Bob, world revolves around us. We want to talk to you right now.
Yep. I'd left my laptop charger at the podium because we had been there the day before. And so, yeah, Bob's in the zone. He's got his stuff, and I'm crawling around under his feet and bumping stuff and knocking stuff over, pulling my laptop charger out. Oh, gracious as ever. Bob's good.
Just remember, Bob's a saint.
He is. He absolutely is. So one of the things that we did last week at SP TechCon was PowerShell with Office 365, which is kind of two of our big loves. And I noticed here a couple of days ago, Microsoft announced that the SharePoint Online, the SPO management shell, is now going to be published. It made kind of two big changes. VESA announced that the SharePoint Online Management Shell will now be in the PowerShell gallery. So it will be much easier to install as opposed to finding the thing and clicking the thing and downloading the thing and all of that. So you can go out, if you've got PowerShell 5 or later, install module name. They still have a really long name, microsoft.online.sharepoint.powershell. Hopefully they'll be able to fix that. But then also they're hosting it in GitHub. So if you've got documentation updates and things like that, you can do a pull request and help them out with that.
Very cool.
So that's a big step. And he also talks about the PNP PowerShell. So the SPO module that we're talking about here is official Microsoft-y things. The PNP PowerShell is a community project that's not done by Microsoft employees, but VESA, being the development head guy ever at Microsoft, I forget what his official title is, he oversees that project. So he talks about how the two kind of interact and where they're different. So it's good to understand how those are. And he teases about maybe they might try to combine them someday. I honestly don't think I want them to, but it's
Well, I think it'd be a great topic for next week's show. Remember the slide that you produced in the PowerShell session, where you talked about like here's kind of the PNP is bad, and then all of the reasons that Erwin had listed out that why PNP was not bad. I think that might be a great one just to talk through for the show, right? Because we don't need the visual; we could just talk through the bullet points and reiterate that PNP is absolutely part of the solution, not only from our perspective, but Microsoft's perspective as well. They understand that PNP fills a gap that they don't want to fill with, interns and, development resources. They want the community to fill it. The community is filling it, so they just support the community filling it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. We'll put that in the notes. So that slide was a fun one because I saw Erwin at a conference, I think the Thrive conference last year, and we were talking about PNP, and I'm like, I got this customer, I suggested it to him, but they said they couldn't do it. His boss wouldn't let him do it because of concerns, and it was like it's like I pulled the cord on Erwin because he's fielded that question a million times. And he's like, here are the 11 reasons why that is ridiculous. And and I'm like, I'm writing down as fast as I can. I'm like, oh, this is gold, Erwin. And so that's what that slide ended up being. It was good stuff.
Yeah, and he's another one like Bob, right? Real mild-mannered dude. So the fact that Todd got him wound up, you knew he had pressed the button.
Well, he's German, so it was not, real wound up, but he was ready. He had a response for that. It was perfect.
I wish he'd punched you in the face in the process. That's the only thing that would make this story better.
The GA could still happen. The story's not over yet.
Things to look forward to.
So the cloud stuff, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a little event yesterday. Of course, by the time this podcast comes out, it will be far later than that. But on September 4th, Azure had a little boo-boo.
Little boo-boo?
Little boo-boo. One of the Azure data centers, one in San Antonio, I believe, went offline for many hours. Is only the only way that I can describe it. Apparently, the story that I've read last about it was one of the cooling alarms was tripped, and so that was one of the alarms that Microsoft has at the data center is starting to heat up, and that's all automated. So once that alarm tripped, everything started shutting down before it melted or burst into flames. And it took them many, many hours to get all that back up. And unfortunately, that data center had a bunch of Azure Active Directory stuff in it and a bunch of Visual Studio stuff. So the Azure Active Directory stuff being down had impacts all over, not just the South Central region, but just all kinds of weird things didn't work. And then Visual Studio was a lot of developer-y things.
Yeah, Power Apps was interesting because Power Apps worked, but you couldn't save a new app and you couldn't share an app. So, yeah, like you said, so I think it mitigated all of the things, but these little bitty pieces, and so we had to stress test and find some of the places that Power Apps needed a little more mitigation to be incorporated.
Yeah. And that stuff's always frustrating. And that's one of those things you're like, I went to the cloud. It's supposed to be more reliable. And look, it was offline for 8 hours yesterday. I was an on-prem guy. I remember on-prem outages. They were long and plentiful. I don't want to say that Microsoft is faultless or blameless, but I feel like there are fewer outages, to enterprises now with that stuff in the cloud. So,
yeah. Oh, and I guess I'd be remiss. Our friends at AppRiver, they have some business continuity stuff there. If this outage thing is something you're thinking about today.
Yeah, I don't know if
You like that little slide-in?
that was very good, very good. And I don't know how that would have, with the infrastructure, that's a good question, how that would have panned out. But yeah, so if things were flaky yesterday, it was because Azure is down. As far as I know, it's all back up now. But
I can save power apps. That's all I care
there
about.
you go. The world's in a good place.
Well, so speaking of outages, we're almost out of time, but I think we should take a moment to make fun of our friend. And maybe this is a plea for help. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so we kind of opened the show telling you guys about, our woes with Skype for pleasure, 11 versus 12. So Todd and I, to have our daily, conversations where we just, we literally Skype each other back and forth, I'm better looking. No, you're better looking. No, that type of stuff. We used to use Skype, but Skype 12 doesn't really work worth a darn.
Well, it just closes. I mean, so,
Yeah.
and this is a funny thing. So I am Shane in the morning, and he would never respond. And I would take it all very personally because I figured that Shane thinks he's better than me because he's been telling me he's better than me for 12, 15 years. And then he would come back later that afternoon and be like, hey, Skype was just gone. I don't know what happened. And I fired it up. And I'm like, right. Uh-huh. So then one of my machines upgraded, and I'll be darned, it doesn't happen to me too. So Skype will be running, whatever, and then it will just close. And so I won't get any updates.
Yeah. So we both had this great idea. We're both Office 365 customers. Imagine that.
Yep.
We're like, hey, Skype for Business. We both got that. And you can talk to external people with Skype for Business.
Uh-huh.
On paper, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So far, Todd and I cannot figure out how to S for B each other. We just we both make setting changes. They go away. They come back. And I can Skype for Business with other people like Daniel Christian. I can talk to him. I can talk to Laura Rogers. I can't talk to Todd Quinn over Skype for Business. So we need a Skype for Business Pro to come in and tell us what to do.
Yeah, and we've discovered a couple of quirks, and this is something they can fix on the back end, I'm sure. But we know that it's an external thing because there's a setting in Skype for Business that Skype for Business users can chat with external folks. Clearly, that's got to be on. And then we were playing with that. What we discovered was if you change anything on the domains list at the bottom, it apparently shuts the external thing off, regardless of what it looked like when you hit save in that screen. So we would go in and we would check stuff, and then it would be off. We'd go in and turn it on, it would stay on, and then we would change something, it would be off. And so, yeah, we fought that for probably half an hour this morning and just can't get figured out. And for me, so for a while, Shane was broken because I could chat with Daniel, but Shane couldn't chat with Daniel. And then Shane changed some stuff and got it working. Now it looks like there's something broken on my end because I've got people that I used to be able to chat with, but now show up as presence unknown. So something's changed in my tenant as well. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and somehow Teams is probably to blame, right? Because Microsoft had the announcement last week that Teams is now ready to, take over all of Skype for Business's duties, and so there's migration paths and things like that. But we had these problems before any of that happened, so I can't really blame Teams, but blaming Teams sounded like fun, so I just threw it out there.
Yeah, and we were talking also before the show. We've both been using Teams a little bit, and it might not be as abjectly horrible as we expect it to be. It might be a little not horrible, but then the problem becomes this switching between tenants is horrible and very slow, and that's just something I haven't wanted to switch over to yet for our daily stuff.
Yeah. All right, last little topic here. So since the last podcast, like 6 months ago, I've done a whole bunch of new Power Apps and Flow videos. A couple I want to highlight though. One is the Power Apps Google Maps API video. So in that one, I show you how to sign up for a Google Maps account or a Google Maps API account, and then integrate Google Maps and their geo location services into your Power Apps app, because Power Apps knows your GPS location. So how to translate that into an actual address, put it on a map, and that type of stuff. So I put all of that into a nice little video.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and that'll probably help me if I have to figure out where Iowa is to be a pallbearer at Todd's funeral. So
There you go. I like that.
And then I also did one that was a big hit around using Power Apps to generate a PDF. So it turns out people want to be able to enter a bunch of data and spit out a PDF, email that off, like customer purchase orders, things like that.
Yeah.
So Flow is the middleman, and it's actually pretty easy. I was kind of a little nervous about that one. I had a customer ask about it. I'm like, I think I can do that. It turns out I don't want to say easy, but it's pretty easy, especially if you understand HTML, because really the key is you use Power Apps to generate HTML. You then go to OneDrive, save that HTML into a file, and then OneDrive has a built-in capability to take an HTML file and turn it into a PDF. So it was pretty straightforward. Flow handled all the hard work, as long as you're not afraid of HTML. If you're afraid of HTML, it kind of stinks.
A little bit, but not a lot. So those are good videos. Just so much stuff. I mean, just bolting all these little pieces together, little bits of functionality. I just love the ideas that come out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the good news for you, Todd, is that this has gotten me to 1.1 million views on my channel. So just wanted to make sure. And there's another special announcement that's coming in about 10 days or so. So you look forward to that YouTube announcement.
Very exciting. All right, so as we're wrapping things up, we got a couple of promotional items to talk about. Self-promotion, Shane and I. The first one is I'm going to be speaking at an event in Omaha, Nebraska this fall. They haven't announced it publicly yet, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but that is coming up, and I'm going to be doing some stuff for them at the Omaha user group. I forget, Office 365 user group, something like that.
Is that like Warren Buffett's birthday party?
We did eat at his favorite restaurant last time I was there, so yeah, it's yeah. I didn't call him when I was in town. I was busy. I'm sure he understands, and I apologize, Warren. But that's a great group. It's like 2.5 hours for me, and I have not been involved with them, and I feel kind of embarrassed about that. But I remedied that last year. Dave Peterson's been very gracious about that. So I'm going to be going out there sometime this fall, and again, they'll be announcing that hopefully soon. And then in December, going to Ljubljana, Slovenia, and I just like that because I finally figured out how to say Ljubljana after how many years. And that's December 4th and 5th for the Thrive Conference. So if you're in Europe, go there, thriveconf.com.
You're doing a full day workshop on what?
I'm doing a full day workshop on admin stuff. So kind of like our 1 hour session, but I'm going to stretch it out. I'm going to get to talk the whole time, which will be nice.
You want me to fly over and take my 20% cough?
You know, if there was a way that you would do that, I would call your bluff. But there's no way. Shane doesn't like to travel outside the U.S. He doesn't like foreigners.
That sounds terrible. I don't like being the foreigner. True. I don't like being the foreigner. That's the messaging there. But
that's probably fair.
One of the tricks, though, is my passport expired, and I just haven't had time to renew it. So I can't leave the country right now.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. So I'm going to be over there December 4th and 5th, and I'm going to be doing a full day workshop, and I think that's the day before. I forget. But sign up for the Thrive Conference. Another one of those SP TechCon kind of conferences, very small, intimate. You get to hang out with everybody. I love that. Slovenia is a beautiful country. I've been there 3 times now, I think 4 times. And it's one of those places that Americans, we don't think about very much, but it's right on the sea there, and it's beautiful, mountainous. Last year when I was there, I toured a cave that was built, or not a cave, a castle that was built into the side of a mountain. Man, it's just crazy. Over here in the U.S., we just don't have stuff like that. It was pretty fun. So if you're over in Europe, think about the Thrive Conference. I would love to see you there. Again, thriveconf.com.
Very cool. I think on that note, I have a meeting in exactly 4 minutes, so we should probably wrap this thing up.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll get this put out, 401. We'll see what's going on next week. I think Shane's got some stuff going on, but we'll see what we got going on. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. I'm going to kill the stream, but we'll be in the chat room for a bit. Shane, how do folks get a hold of you if they want to tell you how great I am?
They can go to Twitter and go to @Shane'sCows, or they can go to that world famous YouTube channel we talked about, Shane Young Cloud. 111,000 views now. I mean, we had 1,000 views while we were sitting here, Todd. What do you want?
I feel my stomach getting sick again. If you want to reach out to me, I'm @ToddClint on Twitter or todd@toddclint.com on email. Apparently not todd@toddclint.com on Skype for Business. But thanks, everybody. Reach out, tell us hi, and we'll see you next week.